At the start of the movie, a lively party is underway in a house. A group photo is taken, and then we see the grandmother, Griselda, quietly leaving the celebration. Shortly after, Rosario is shown gazing out the window. Her mother, Elena, who appears ill and is coughing, asks if she has seen Griselda and tells her to go check on her. Oscar, her father, beckons her and reassures her that her dreams will come true one day. They share a personal hand gesture and exchange "I love you." Rosario cautiously makes her way down the hallway, searching for Griselda. She knocks on a door, which slowly creaks open on its own. Inside, she glimpses mud on the floor and insects scattered about. Pulling a curtain aside, she sees blood on Griselda's shawl. Alarmed, Rosario starts to back away, but Griselda suddenly appears behind her. Rosario turns on the light and catches a brief glimpse of her before she vanishes. Then, Griselda declines Rosario's prayer invitation, citing different beliefs. Rosario notices Griselda's bleeding hand, but Griselda calmly dismisses it. Oscar then announces Rosario's first communion and asks everyone to take a moment to remember loved ones who have passed. As the guests close their eyes in prayer, Rosario notices her grandma moving silently among them. Their eyes meet, unnerving Rosario. Suddenly, the candle in front of Griselda flickers and extinguishes, turning everything black. The scene then moves to the present, where Rosario, a successful stockbroker, receives a call from her grandmother. She pauses before deciding not to answer. At work, a security guard named Miguel requests that she arrange an investment meeting for himself and his wife. She explains that her firm has a minimum requirement for clients. Her grandmother calls again, but she ignores it. Later, she answers another call, only to hear a distorted voice inform her of Griselda's demise. Rosario, alarmed by the news, asks where her grandmother is being taken. The caller explains that the weather is too severe for transport and asks if anyone nearby can watch over the body. Rosario, though alone, insists on going. She then calls her father to inform him. It's revealed that her parents, Elena and Oscar, are separated, and that Elena, who had lived with Griselda, is now deceased. Rosario tells Oscar she's heading to Griselda's apartment, but he warns her against it, offering to take care of everything himself. She reminds him of the travel time in the storm, and he says he's leaving immediately. On the subway, Rosario listens to an old voicemail from Griselda. Disturbed by the distorted message, she becomes visibly shaken when she sees a vision of her sick mother at a distance, only for it to vanish moments later. She hurries away, unsettled. Eventually, Rosario arrives at the apartment building, where she is met by an elderly man named Marty. After confirming the elevator is malfunctioning and describing strange noises and irregular door behavior, he offers to guide her to the apartment. During their walk, he shares that Griselda often spoke of returning to her homeland and had been feeling emotionally unwell. Rosario explains her family situation and mentions that her father is on the way. At the door, Marty brings up a neighbor, Joe, and explains that he and Joe placed Griselda on the sofa and covered her. He adds that the ambulance should arrive soon. Before leaving, he extinguishes a few candles and leaves Rosario alone in the apartment. Rosario, overcome with emotion, pulls back the sheet and is startled by the sight of her grandmother's body. She closes her eyes and notices unsettling cuts and symbols carved into the skin. Suddenly, the sound of breaking glass draws her into the kitchen, which she finds in a state of rot and infestation. Carefully, she begins discarding the filth. She then hears an ambulance outside and rushes to signal it. But it passes by without stopping. Rosario quickly contacts emergency services, explaining the situation and mentioning that an ambulance had arrived but left. The operator informs her it was redirected to a critical case and says another unit will return in a few hours before abruptly ending the call. Just as Rosario ends the call, she notices the candles in the room have mysteriously relit themselves. She blows them out. A passing train rumbles, shaking the apartment and causing Griselda's body to tumble off the sofa. Once the vibrations subside, Rosario drags the corpse into the bedroom and places it on the bed. She spots a framed photo of herself on the wall, glances at it, and then puts it away. While glancing in a mirror, she catches a disturbing sight. Griselda's head appears to move. Examining the body, Rosario notices a twitch in one of her grandmother's nostrils. A worm emerges, followed by thick black fluid. Horrified, Rosario wipes away the substance, grabs the worm with a napkin, and attempts to throw it away. However, the worm crawls onto her hand, causing panic. She swiftly removes her jacket as it ascends, then frantically yanks it from her ear. Mud trails on the floor catch her attention, but she hesitates and decides to leave. Moments later, curiosity gets the better of her. Returning, she draws back a curtain and turns on the light. Behind it, she finds Griselda's garments. Hidden among the clothes are an animal skull and fresh bloodstains. Moving the clothes aside, she stumbles upon a locked door with a peculiar symbol etched onto its surface. Suddenly, a loud knock startles her. She peeks through the peephole and opens the door to a neighbor, Joe, standing there. He introduces himself and says he had helped move Griselda's body onto the sofa. Rosario thanks him. Joe then asks for the return of his air fryer, which he claims Griselda borrowed. She tells him she'll check for it and closes the door. He tries again, She responds curtly, only for him to comment on a burn on her hand that she hadn't noticed. Disturbed, Rosario quickly wraps her hand with a bandage. While doing so, she spots a strange symbol carved into Griselda's leg. Carefully uncoiling it, she discovers a small key entangled in the wire. She takes it and heads back to the locked door. The key fits. Inside, Rosario discovers a hidden room filled with ritualistic and disturbing items. There are elements resembling a black magic setup, including charms, bones, and arcane symbols. She cautiously explores the space, picking up a crude doll tagged with the name Kobayende. She places it back, then notices a photo of herself. What's far worse, her own teeth and strands of her hair, too, are indicators of a ritual using her personal remnants. The realization overwhelms her, and she vomits. In the background, a figure crawls across the floor. The woman hears a faint creak. Scared, she looks, but the figure retreats out of sight. As she tries to escape, she runs into hidden barbed wire. Injured and panicking, she bolts from the room. The lights start flickering and then go out completely. Overcome with dread, Rosario prepares to leave the apartment for good. Before exiting, she leaves a note on the door stating that the body is in the bedroom. As she steps into the hallway, Joe reappears. He notices her injuries and once again brings up the air fryer, but Rosario ignores him and continues on. Marty, who is downstairs repairing the building's fuses, cautions Rosario about the citywide curfew. Regardless of the circumstances, she is determined to leave. Unable to find any taxis, Rosario sprints towards the subway. At the station, a man's voice informs her it's closed. His dog barks aggressively as she hesitates. When she starts to flee, the man releases the dog. Rosario barely escapes. Suddenly, a spectral version of her mother, Elena, appears, attacking Rosario before vanishing. She wriggles free from the dog, who catches her coat, and runs back to the apartment. Just then, sparks erupt from the fuse box. Rosario's online research leads her to Palo Mayombe, a dark religious practice. This syncretic belief system blends African spiritual traditions with Latin American Catholicism, practiced by Paleros, who incorporate human and animal remains in their rituals. It was spread through slavery and migration. Central to the practice are iron cauldrons called ngangas, which serve as conduits for spiritual communication, pact-making, and curse work. As Rosario reads on, her eyes catch a symbol flashing on the screen. The accursed, an ancient mark signifying life and death. Scared, she realizes the same symbol is now etched into her own skin. Shaken, she calls her father. She confesses her fear that Griselda cursed her before passing away, describing the black magic chamber she discovered. Oscar makes sure to say that Griselda wasn't evil, that she was a curandera, a healer who practiced spiritual medicine. He explains she came to the country undocumented, and that her nganga, the ritual cauldron, was her way of staying connected to her cultural roots. He questions why Griselda would ever curse her. Rosario suspects it was an act of revenge, stemming from her perceived abandonment of her grandmother and mother following the divorce, as she chose to live with Oscar instead. She wasn't there when either of them passed. Gently, Oscar pleaded with her to return home with the assurance that he would take care of everything. But Rosario is determined. She refuses to leave until she breaks the curse. She goes upstairs after ending the call. Outside the apartment, she finds Joe trying to unlock the door. She demands to be left alone and re-enters the black magic chamber. Attempting to move the cauldron, she struggles as the heavy chain catches. Just then, Elena's ghost grabs the chain and lunges. Rosario wrestles her off and slams the door, but the ghost continues to haunt her from the other side, flinging Rosario across the room with supernatural force. She begins frantically searching for a method to break the curse. Her phone switches off just as she uncovers a hollow space behind a cabinet. As she lights a candle, a concealed compartment catches her eye. Inside, she uncovers an ancient book. She opens it, thumbing through its pages, and reads that the curse can only be broken if both the blood of the cursed and the one who cast the curse are poured into the nganga. Acting quickly, Rosario sterilizes a knife, pricks her own finger, and allows the blood to enter the cauldron. She then tries to draw blood from Griselda, but no blood flows. Desperate, Rosario tries and fails to attack her grandma with the knife. At that moment, her phone momentarily powers on and vibrates. A distorted voice from Griselda begs for forgiveness. Suddenly, Elena's ghost appears, pleading for help. Driven by a rush of fear and emotion, Rosario plunges the knife into Griselda's hand. Elena vanishes as the blood enters the cauldron. Her phone vibrates again with another plea from Griselda. Rosario is shaken. The blood was poured, so why hasn't the curse lifted? Just then, Griselda's head slumps forward and her ghost attacks. Rosario scrambles under the bed as clawed, ghostly hands reach for her from all sides, before vanishing just as suddenly. Elena reappears, confronting Rosario with unresolved guilt, declaring that Rosario once refused to watch her perish, so now she would. She then vomits a thick stream of black sludge onto her. Rosario escapes in terror. A knock at the door follows. Joe once again is asking about his air fryer. She responds bitterly that her grandmother never even used one. Joe cryptically replies that Rosario didn't really know her. This time, Rosario opens the door and questions him. Joe hesitates, then admits that Griselda loved Rosario deeply. She prayed for her constantly. He used to hear her praying through the walls, day and night, for Rosario's success. The realization hits. Rosario rushes back inside, re-examining the spellbook. She finds a page titled, "A Deal with Cobayende." It explains that once the deal is fulfilled, Cobayende, the dark wanderer and collector of souls, comes to claim what's owed. Until the beneficiary passes, a tormented spirit will haunt them relentlessly. As she processes this, Elena's ghost silently appears behind her. Rosario declares that she wants nothing more, but then notices the spellbook is gone. Across the room, she sees Griselda's ghost holding it. After a violent struggle, the book is knocked loose. Rosario finds the section explaining how to nullify the deal. The person who made the deal must pour their own blood into the Nganga, sacrificing their soul to Cobayende. But the problem is that Griselda is already lifeless. She makes a bold decision. If Griselda's soul is still connected to her body, perhaps she can trap Cobayende inside it. Gathering items, her grandmother's jacket, blood, and hair, she begins preparing a ritual. She pauses at the mirror, questioning everything. Following the spellbook's instructions, Rosario lights the candles and begins chanting. A distant ambulance siren grows louder. Marty's voice calls from outside, announcing that the medics have arrived. She hurriedly snuffs out the candles and hides the body. When Rosario doesn't answer, Marty unlocks the door. Realizing the body is no longer on the sofa, he heads toward the bedroom. Inside, Rosario hides, breath held. Suddenly, Elena's ghost appears and crawls toward her. Rosario screams. Elena declares that Griselda was always by her side, and now Rosario would join them. She begins strangling her. Outside, Marty bangs on the chamber door. As Elena tightens her grip, a cross glows in her hand, and she continues trying to off Rosario. As Rosario chants, a medic's flashlight cuts through the darkness. Elena vanishes. Rosario emerges to find Griselda's body gone. She searches the apartment and suddenly spots her grandmother suspended from the ceiling. A passing train rattles the building, making Griselda's body collapse onto her. Rosario recovers, dons the jacket, and continues the ritual. As she recites the spell, Griselda's mouth distorts into a grotesque gape. Out of it, a pale hand begins to crawl. It suddenly retreats. Elena returns, slamming Rosario's head against the wall and knocking her unconscious. Light floods in. Rosario awakens to see Elena in human form. They embrace, grief and guilt pouring out. Rosario confesses to abandoning them after the divorce, and Elena assures her that she was always loved. But as Elena gently coaxes Rosario into repeating self-condemning words, her face contorts into a demonic sneer. Turns out it's not her mother. Rosario tries to flee, but Elena traps her, dragging her across the floor, forcing her to witness the past. Amid flashing lights and chaos, Rosario relives her mother's suffering when she migrated, a barbed wire tearing into her skin, an expiring man passing her across before collapsing. Elena's pain had been hidden, but now Rosario sees it clearly. Back in the present, Elena demands recognition. Rosario rejects her. This twisted spirit is not her mother. She curses Cobayende's eternal entrapment within Griselda's body and begins the ritual. Elena resists, but Rosario chants with unshaken resolve. Elena is slowly, brutally pulled into Griselda's gaping mouth, her cries morphing from manipulation to agony, and then she vanishes. The next day, Oscar arrives to find Rosario seated in silence. The mark on her hand has vanished. They mourn Griselda together, offering a prayer from the spellbook. The medics retrieve Griselda's body. Later, Oscar finds Joe's air fryer, proving the poor man had indeed been truthful. Rosario flips through an old photo album, but then she notices blood in a photo on her father's fingers. Alarmed, she investigates. Oscar's shirt lies near the chamber. Inside, Rosario confronts him, making him confess. He made the deal with Cobayende during her childhood, desperate to secure her future. Knowing Griselda's spiritual practice, he broke into her Nganga chamber and made the wish, unaware of the price. Griselda had discovered this and vowed to contain the curse herself. Rosario remembers her scars. They were due to her daily offerings of blood to keep the demon at bay. Now Oscar offers to take over the sacrifice, but Rosario realizes that if that happens, the demon will fully have control over his body. Before she can stop him, it's too late. Oscar begins to transform, his body twisting into a demonic form. The chamber locks. He drags the cauldron out and attacks Rosario, intent on consuming her. He burns her and throws her across the room. As he prepares to off her, Joe arrives and strikes him. Oscar recovers swiftly, lifts Joe into the air, and breaks his neck. In a final act of desperation, Rosario attacks Oscar in the neck. He collapses onto the Nganga, impaled by its knives. As the last breath escapes him, he makes a familiar hand gesture, telling his daughter that he loves her. Rosario whispers her final goodbye, and he passes. 6 months later, Rosario is seen running her own firm, now helping struggling immigrant families navigate finance and law. She assists a young couple, Miguel and his wife. After they leave, Rosario lights a candle and says a quiet prayer. But something is wrong. She begins coughing, The glass protecting her family photo cracks, and a demonic hand bursts from her mouth. The movie ends.